I always thought having your best friend and your girlfriend get along would be simple. But that night, one dinner, and a few photos posted online without permission. Everything changed. Trust, friendship, and love all hanging by a thread. And I'm the one stuck right in the middle. Asterisk, I had always believed that my life was simple, predictable in the best kind of way. My routines were familiar, my circle of friends solid, and my girlfriend Lily. Well, she was a constant calm in the storm of my sometimes chaotic world. And then there was Anna, my best friend since childhood. Anna had a way of filling a room, not with just her presence, but with the kind of energy that was impossible to ignore. Loud, laughing, always moving, always capturing every moment of life through the lens of her phone. Our apartment, a modest 2-bedroom space in the heart of the city, smelled faintly of spices and fresh bread that evening. The light from the kitchen flickered over the countertops where Lily had already begun prepping the vegetables for dinner. Her movements were deliberate, almost meditative, cutting and chopping with the precision of someone who valued order and subtlety. She hummed softly to herself a song I didn't recognize, but it was enough to remind me why I loved watching her in moments like this. Anna, on the other hand, was a whirlwind. She arrived at the door moments before dinner, phone in hand, ready to document the evening before it had even begun. Her laugh erupted the instant she stepped into the room, bouncing off the walls, filling every corner with a kind of energy that made it impossible for anyone to remain quiet for long. "Hey, stranger," she shouted, dropping her bag and immediately holding up her phone as if it were a camera and I was the star. "Smile, geez." I smiled politely, a familiar mix of amusement and apprehension swirling inside me. Anna had always been this way, unfiltered, unabashed, always capturing life in real time for her countless social media followers. And while I had grown used to it, Lily was different. She wasn't opposed to photos in theory, but she valued privacy. A boundary that had always felt natural to me, but which Anna, with her camera ready at all times, seemed to ignore entirely. Dinner preparation became a dance of contrasts. Lily arranged the ingredients neatly in bowls, labeling each for efficiency, while Anna snapped photos of everything from the chopping board to the cutting knife to the colorful array of peppers and tomatoes that Lily had so carefully prepared. I tried to focus on the conversation, weaving stories from my day, making jokes here and there, but part of my mind kept drifting to the phone in Anna's hand, wondering how Lily would react once these pictures inevitably made their way online. And yet, in that moment, none of it mattered. The apartment was warm, the aroma of spices hung in the air, and the sound of laughter, Anna's infectious laughter, mingled with Lily's quieter, softer chuckles made the room feel alive in a way that only happens when two worlds collide. Worlds that, on paper, shouldn't necessarily fit together, yet somehow they did. Or at least, I thought they did, as Anna continued to move through the kitchen, documenting every small detail with the enthusiasm of a child discovering the world anew. I watched Lily's eyes flicker with a mixture of amusement and unease. She said nothing at first, choosing instead to continue her work, chopping the vegetables in silence, a small frown creeping across her forehead whenever Anna's phone waved too close to her. I knew the storm was coming. I didn't know when or how, but I could feel it in the tension beneath the laughter, in the small pauses and subtle glances that went unnoticed by Anna but not by me. And then, with the clatter of pans and the scent of simmering sauce filling the apartment, I realized this was just the beginning. Dinner was finally on the stove. The aroma of garlic and onions sizzling in olive oil filled the apartment, mixing with the faint scent of freshly baked bread from earlier. I tried to sink into the moment, thinking that perhaps tonight could pass without any tension. Anna, as always, had other plans. She moved around the kitchen like a hurricane in sneakers, snapping pictures of everything, the steam rising from the pan, the way Lily's hands gracefully stirred the sauce, the colorful chaos of vegetables spread across the cutting board. Wait, Anna exclaimed, pointing her phone at the onions sorting in the pan. This is pure art. You guys, look at this. Lily's basically a chef. Lily gave a small smile, her lips pressed together. There was a flicker of discomfort in her eyes, the kind that only appeared when she felt exposed. She had always been careful about her image online, not because she didn't enjoy photos, but because she valued control over what the world saw of her. Anna's unrestrained posting habits had always skirted this line, and tonight I could feel Lily bracing herself. I tried to make light of it. Hey, Anna, maybe wait until dinner is done, I said, hoping to ease the tension without making it obvious that I was anticipating a potential clash. But Anna was already halfway through framing a shot of Lily holding a wooden spoon, steam curling around her like she had just stepped out of a cooking magazine. No way, this is Instagram gold. People need to see this moment, she said, grinning. I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. This was not just a photo, it was a line being crossed, and I was the middleman, the buffer between two worlds, Anna's world of spontaneous sharing and Lily's carefully guarded privacy. As the sauce simmered, I watched Lily chop vegetables in silence. Her movements were precise, almost meditative, but there was a tension to her posture that hadn't been there before. Her jaw was set, her hands moved faster than usual, and every time Anna lifted her phone, I could see her flinch slightly. The dinner table was set, and we moved everything over. Anna insisted on taking pictures of the plates, the arrangement, even my half-full glass of water. Come on, just one more shot, she said, holding her phone like a trophy. I looked at Lily. She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the knife. I could see her mind running 1,000 miles an hour. Finally, she whispered, "Can you not post these? At least not tonight." Anna froze, mid-frame. Wait, what? Not post? Her brows knitted in confusion. It's just dinner. It's nothing serious. You're being ridiculous. I could feel the tension spike in the room, a tangible current running between them. I swallowed hard, realizing I had to mediate without making either of them feel attacked. Anna, maybe just hold off for now, I said carefully. She's not comfortable with it. Anna's face shifted from confusion to frustration. Seriously, I've been taking pictures like this forever. I post every day, how come this suddenly matters? Lily's voice was quiet but firm. Because this is me, and I don't want every little thing about my life online. The air felt heavy, filled with unspoken accusations and the clash of boundaries. I could feel my chest tighten, trying to keep the peace, to find the words that would make everyone okay again. But words alone weren't enough. The rest of dinner continued in a fragile balance. Anna still held her phone, occasionally glancing at it with a frown. Lily ate quietly, more focused on the taste of the food than the conversation. I jumped between topics, trying to fill the gaps, making jokes that landed awkwardly, laughter that felt hollow. And as the evening wore on, I realized something important. This wasn't about dinner or even about photos. This was about respect, about understanding limits, about navigating the tricky terrain of long-term friendship and romantic relationships. And in that moment, I knew the balance could tip at any second. Asterisk. The evening wore on, but the tension never really lifted. The laughter had faded, replaced by an uneasy quiet, punctuated only by the clatter of cutlery and Anna's occasional muttered exclamations as she tried to capture the perfect shot without thinking about how it might affect Lily. I could feel my own chest tightening. I had always been the peacemaker between these two, the buffer who could absorb small sparks before they became flames. But tonight, even I could feel the sparks getting dangerously close to fire. "Are you really going to post that?" Lily finally asked, her voice steady but sharp, eyes locking onto Anna's. Anna froze, phone midair. "Well, yeah. It's just a photo. It's harmless. People post pictures all the time, not of me." Lily's words cut through the room like a knife. "Not without my permission. I've told you before, I don't want everything online." I felt my stomach twist. I had hoped this confrontation wouldn't happen, but it had been simmering under the surface, waiting for the right or wrong moment. I stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. "Anna, maybe we should just put the phone down for now. We can take pictures later, or not at all tonight." Anna's eyes narrowed, a flash of hurt crossing her face. "I don't get it. You've never said anything before. You always laugh it off. Why now?" "It's not about me," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "It's about her, Lily. She's not comfortable, and I need to respect that," Anna huffed, shaking her head, and the phone finally lowered to her side. The room fell silent for a moment, and I realized that silence was heavier than any argument could have been. Lily's eyes softened slightly, but there was still tension. She focused on her plate, stirring her food absent-mindedly. Anna, on the other hand, looked frustrated and hurt, and I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to understand why something she considered trivial could cause such upheaval. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this," Anna muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "It's not like I posted anything terrible." "It's not terrible," I said quietly, "but it's not yours to post. It's hers, and she has a right to decide." Anna looked at me, her expression conflicted. I could see the struggle, the desire to maintain her own freedom, the frustration of feeling censored, and yet the underlying guilt of knowing she might have crossed the line. We finished dinner in an uneasy quiet. I tried to engage in small talk, asking about work, joking about mundane things, but the energy in the room had shifted. The easy camaraderie that had existed between all three of us had been replaced by a fragile, tense truce. As the dishes were cleared, I felt a gnawing sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about a few photos. This was a test of boundaries, of respect, of the delicate balance between friendship and romantic relationships. And I was standing right in the middle, trying not to let it all collapse. Later, as we moved to the living room with cups of tea, Anna finally spoke. Her voice, quieter now, almost vulnerable. I feel like I can't do anything anymore without worrying if it's okay with someone else. It's exhausting." I nodded slowly, understanding her point, but also realizing how much I had underestimated Lily's need for control over her own image. "I know, Anna, but think of it this way: if she feels respected, maybe you'll still get your photos. but they'll be shared with consent, not conflict. Anna sighed, leaning back on the couch. I guess. But it feels like I'm losing a part of what I love about sharing life. I get it, I said softly. It's not easy, but maybe it's about finding a balance. We can share moments, but we have to make sure everyone involved is comfortable. The evening ended with a tentative peace, but I knew it was temporary. The seeds of conflict had been planted, and I could sense that this was only the beginning of a much longer journey, one that would test not only my relationship with Lily, but also the friendship I had treasured with Anna for over a decade. As I cleaned up the kitchen, I kept glancing at Anna and Lily, feeling the tension, the unspoken thoughts, the careful monitoring of each other's moods. I realized that the real challenge wasn't just about photos or social media. It was about trust, boundaries, and learning how to navigate the messy, intricate relationships that define our lives. And I knew that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be quite the same again. The night had settled into a quiet that felt almost unnatural. The dishes were done, the kitchen cleaned, but the energy between the three of us remained taut, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, trying to process everything that had happened. Anna sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a distant look, while Lily perched on the edge of the armchair, staring at her tea as if it held the answers to questions neither of us could answer. Look, I started, my voice careful, measured. I know this feels weird, and I know it's frustrating. Anna, you're used to sharing everything, and Lily, she just needs a little control over what's shared. Anna didn't look up. A little control. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I can't do anything without thinking about whether it's okay. This isn't how it used to be. I know, I said softly. But maybe it's about respecting boundaries. It doesn't mean you can't share life. It just means you ask first. That's all. Her phone slipped from her hands, landing on the carpet with a soft thud. Ask first. She echoed, her voice tight. I've shared thousands of photos without anyone complaining, and suddenly, now it's an issue. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. It's not about the number of photos. It's about who's in them and how they feel about being online. Lily's. She's uncomfortable, and I can't ignore that. Lily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper but full of emotion. I don't mind being in photos. I don't want my life exposed without my permission. It's not about you, Anna. It's about me. Anna's eyes filled with frustration and hurt, a mixture that made my stomach churn. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this. It feels like I can't be myself anymore. I could see the tension building, the kind that could easily explode if I didn't step carefully. You can be yourself, I said firmly. But part of being friends and part of being in a relationship is respecting the people you care about. That's all. She didn't answer. She just sat there, arms crossed, jaw tight. Lily's eyes were shiny with unshed tears, and I felt a pang of guilt. I had hoped to mediate, to prevent a fight, but the honesty in that room was more powerful than any joke or distraction I could offer. Finally, Anna's shoulders slumped. She looked down at her phone, scrolling through the pictures she had taken earlier. I guess I can try, she muttered, almost to herself. But it feels like I'm losing a part of who I am. You're not losing yourself, I said gently. You're just learning to respect others while still being you. That's a balance we all have to find. The silence returned, but this time it felt different, not tense, but reflective. Lily exhaled, a small, shaky smile appearing on her face. Anna gave a short nod, still looking distant, but perhaps a little more open. I poured myself another glass of water, my hands trembling slightly. The room was quiet, but my mind was spinning. I knew the night hadn't solved everything. The seeds of conflict had been planted, and while the immediate storm had passed, I could feel that the coming days would be complicated. As I looked at Anna and Lily, I realized something vital. Friendship, love, and trust weren't simple. They required constant effort, compromise, and, above all, respect. And as much as I had hoped this dinner would be just another night of laughter and good food, it had become a turning point where lines were drawn, boundaries were tested, and the balance of my life, the delicate mix of friendship and love, was forever altered. I knew that the real challenge wasn't over. It was just beginning. The night had settled into a quiet that felt almost unnatural. The dishes were done, the kitchen cleaned, but the energy between the three of us remained taut, like a wire stretched to its breaking point. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, trying to process everything that had happened. Anna sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a distant look, while Lily perched on the edge of the armchair, staring at her tea as if it held the answers to questions neither of us could answer. "Look," I started, my voice careful, measured. "I know this feels weird, and I know it's frustrating, Anna. You're used to sharing everything, and Lily, she just needs a little control over what's shared." Anna didn't look up. A little control. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I can't do anything without thinking about whether it's okay. This isn't how it used to be. I know, I said softly, but maybe it's about respecting boundaries. It doesn't mean you can't share life, just means you ask first. That's all. Her phone slipped from her hands, landing on the carpet with a soft thud. "Ask first," she echoed, her voice tight. "I've shared thousands of photos without anyone complaining, and suddenly, now it's an issue." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. It's not about the number of photos. It's about who's in them and how they feel about being online. Lily's, she's uncomfortable, and I can't ignore that. Lily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, but full of emotion. "I don't mind being in photos. I don't want my life exposed without my permission. It's not about you, Anna. It's about me." Anna's eyes filled with frustration and hurt, a mixture that made my stomach churn. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this. It feels like I can't be myself anymore." I could see the tension building, the kind that could easily explode if I didn't step carefully. "You can be yourself," I said firmly, "but part of being friends and part of being in a relationship, respecting the people you care about." "That's all." She didn't answer. She just sat there, arms crossed, jaw tight. Lily's eyes were shiny with unshed tears, and I felt a pang of guilt. I had hoped to mediate, to prevent a fight, but the honesty in that room was more powerful than any joke or distraction I could offer. Finally, Anna's shoulders slumped. She looked down at her phone, scrolling through the pictures she had taken earlier. I guess I can try," she muttered, almost to herself. but it feels like I'm losing a part of who I am." "You're not losing yourself," I said gently. "You're just learning to respect others while still being you. That's a balance we all have to find." The silence returned, but this time it felt different, not tense, but reflective. Lily exhaled, a small, shaky smile appearing on her face. Anna gave a short nod, still looking distant, but perhaps a little more open. I poured myself another glass of water, my hands trembling slightly. The room was quiet, but my mind was spinning. I knew the night hadn't solved everything. The seeds of conflict had been planted, and while the immediate storm had passed, I could feel that the coming days would be complicated. As I looked at Anna and Lily, I realized something vital. Friendship, love, and trust weren't simple. They required constant effort, compromise, and, above all, respect. And as much as I had hoped this dinner would be just another night of laughter and good food, it had become a turning point where lines were drawn, boundaries were tested, and the balance of my life, the delicate mix of friendship and love, was forever altered. I knew that the real challenge wasn't over. It was just beginning. Morning light seeped through the thin curtains, spilling softly across the living room. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. I sat on the edge of the couch, sipping black coffee, replaying last night's dinner over and over in my mind. Every laugh, every glance, every unspoken tension, it was all there, vivid and undeniable. Anna hadn't messaged me yet. Lily hadn't either. For a moment, the silence felt comforting, a reprieve from the storm of emotions I had tried to navigate the night before. But the comfort was fleeting. I knew that the unspoken words, the small grievances, were waiting quietly to surface. I wandered into the kitchen to find Lily quietly making breakfast. The aroma of toast and brewing coffee filled the air, grounding me in the simple rhythm of morning. She glanced up briefly, offering a small, tentative smile, and I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe she was okay. Maybe things hadn't broken beyond repair. But then came the message notification on my phone, "Anna." I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. I knew this would set the tone for the day, for the days to come. With a deep breath, I opened it. "I don't get it. I feel like I can't do anything without worrying about what's okay. Is this really how it's going to be now?" Her words were short, but heavy. I could hear the frustration, the hurt, the feeling of being misunderstood in every character. I stared at the message, unsure whether to respond immediately or let the tension cool. I poured myself another cup of coffee, leaning against the counter as I thought. Anna had been a constant in my life for so long. She was not just a friend. She was family in a way. And yet, last night had shifted something fundamental. Something invisible had been cracked, and I wasn't sure if it could be mended easily. Lily joined me at the counter, placing a hand gently on mine. "You okay?" she asked softly. Her voice carried the calm of someone who had already weathered storms, someone I trusted implicitly. I don't know, I admitted, rubbing my temples. "Anna messaged me. She's hurt. I get it, but I also need to protect you. I just don't know how to balance it." She squeezed my hand. "We'll figure it out, together. But you need to be honest with her and with me. No pretending everything's fine when it's not." Her words resonated, but I could feel the weight of what was coming. Anna had always been spontaneous, unfiltered, and her energy was hard to contain. I could only imagine the inner turmoil she was feeling, wondering why boundaries mattered now when they had never mattered before. The morning continued in a delicate dance. Coffee was sipped slowly, toast was eaten in silence, and occasional glances were exchanged, each carrying unspoken words. I wanted to reach out to Anna, to bridge the gap, but I also knew that timing was everything. One wrong move, one rushed message, and the fragile balance of last night could collapse entirely. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I felt the creeping anxiety. How long could I mediate? How long before one side felt betrayed or ignored? And more importantly, how long before the simple act of taking a photo could redefine the boundaries of trust, friendship, and love forever? By late morning, the apartment felt heavy, the silence almost tangible. I had been pacing between the living room and kitchen, glancing at my phone every few minutes, expecting a follow-up message from Anna when it finally arrived. I braced myself. I still don't understand why this matters so much. I feel like I've been thrown out of my own life. Her words hit me harder than I anticipated. I could feel the strain of decades-long friendship stretching thin, while Lily's quiet disapproval lingered in the corners of my mind. Balancing the two was no longer just a challenge, it was a tightrope walk over a precipice. Lily, sensing my unease, finally broke the silence. You should answer her. Don't leave her hanging, but be honest. She needs to know why this is important to me. I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. How could I explain something so simple, yet so complex? Anna, I typed, hesitating before pressing send. It's not about stopping you from sharing life. It's about respecting boundaries, especially mine and Lily's. Within seconds, a reply came. Boundaries. I've shared our lives for years, and now you're telling me to stop. To censor myself. I felt the tension spike. This wasn't just about a single incident. It was about trust, respect, and the invisible rules that guided human relationships. I knew Anna felt cornered, unfairly restrained. And yet, Lily's feelings were equally valid. I stood there, phone in hand, realizing that this moment defined the precarious balance I had been maintaining. Any word, any tone could tip the scales. I decided to call Anna, hoping the conversation would be smoother over voice than text. The line rang twice before her voice came, sharp and emotional. Hello. Anna, I said carefully. I just want to talk. Can we be honest with each other? There was a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Okay. Go ahead, I explained, as gently as I could, how Lily felt about photos, about privacy, and why I needed to respect that. I emphasized that it wasn't about limiting her freedom, but about finding a balance that didn't hurt anyone. Her silence on the other end was telling. Finally, she sighed. I get it. Maybe, but it still feels like I'm walking on eggshells. Like I can't do anything right. You're not wrong to feel that, I replied. But relationships, whether friendship or romantic, require compromise. And this is one of those moments. The conversation didn't end in anger, but the air was thick with unresolved tension. I could hear her quiet frustration, and I knew that the night's events had left a mark deeper than any social media post could convey. After the call, I sat with Lily in the living room. She leaned against me, exhaling slowly. You did the right thing, she whispered, but I can tell she's upset, and I feel guilty too, somehow. I held her tighter, acknowledging the complex mess we were in. It's not about blame, I said. It's about navigating this carefully, and we'll figure it out together. But even as I said the words, I couldn't shake the creeping doubt. How long before Anna felt betrayed? How long before Lily felt her boundaries were being tested again? And what would happen when one of them finally snapped? The rest of the morning passed with quiet tension, each small movement pouring coffee, adjusting the blinds, flipping through a magazine felt amplified. Every glance, every sigh carried unspoken weight. It was a delicate balance, and I realized with a sinking feeling that I was walking on that tightrope alone, trying to hold two worlds together without letting either fall. By mid-afternoon, the apartment felt almost suffocating. The sunlight streamed lazily through the windows, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch the tension further. I sat at the dining table, staring at my laptop, but not actually reading, my mind replaying every moment from the dinner, the phone calls, and the text messages. Then my phone buzzed again. Anna, I just don't get why this has to be so complicated. Why can't I just be me? Why do I always have to think about everyone else's comfort? Her words pierced me. I could feel the frustration, the hurt, the sense of being misunderstood in every letter. I knew that this was a turning point, something that could either heal with understanding or fracture irreparably. I set the phone down and turned to Lily. She was sitting on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, staring blankly at the floor. Her face carried a mixture of relief and anxiety, as if even our attempts at resolution were not enough to make her fully comfortable. I think she wants to talk in person, I said quietly. She needs to understand, and maybe we need to face this together. Lily nodded slowly, her expression cautious but trusting. Okay, but you have to make sure it's calm. No blaming, no shouting. We agreed to meet Anna at a nearby cafe, a neutral ground where emotions might be easier to control. As we drove, my stomach churned. I had mediated conflicts before, but never with such deeply personal stakes intertwined with friendship and romantic trust. When we arrived, Anna was already there, sitting with her phone in hand, tapping her fingers anxiously on the table. Her eyes brightened for a moment when she saw us, but the tension in her jaw betrayed the storm beneath. "Hi," I said gently. "Thanks for meeting us." Anna nodded, setting her phone down. I want to understand why this is such a big deal. It's just photos, right?" "Not just photos," Lily said softly, her voice steady but firm. "It's about me, about my boundaries. I don't mind being in pictures, Anna, but I need to have control over what gets shared online. That's all." Anna's eyes narrowed slightly. "Control. I feel like I've lost control of my own friendship. You're telling me what I can and can't post. It's suffocating." "I know it feels that way," I interjected. "And it's not about stopping you from sharing your life. It's about respecting someone you care about. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less." For a moment, there was silence. Anna stared at us, her emotions raw, her expression conflicted. I could see the struggle in her eyes, the desire to assert her freedom, the frustration of being told no, and the underlying love and loyalty she had for both of us. Finally, she exhaled, a long, shaky breath. I guess I can try, but it still feels like a part of me is being censored." "You're not being censored," I said gently. "You're just learning to consider others while still being yourself. That's all any of us can do." Lily reached out, placing a hand on Anna's arm. "I get it. I know it's hard, but if we can find a way to respect each other, we'll all feel better. You, me, and him." Anna's eyes softened slightly, and she nodded. "Okay, I'll try. But it's going to take some getting used to." The conversation ended with tentative understanding, but I could feel the fragility of this resolution, knowing that trust, once strained, could never be fully restored overnight. As we left the cafe, I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Relief that the confrontation had been verbalized calmly. Apprehension because I knew this was just the beginning of navigating the complex triangle of emotions, friendships, and boundaries that defined our intertwined lives. We left the cafe in a fragile silence. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows on the street, and for a moment, the city around us seemed almost irrelevant, as if we were the only three people navigating this delicate emotional web. Anna walked a few steps ahead, phone tucked away but hands fidgeting nervously. I stayed close to Lily, sensing her quiet apprehension. Neither of us spoke, letting the weight of the day settle around us. Finally, I spoke softly. "Anna, I know it feels like a lot, and maybe it's unfair, but think about it. It's not about control or censorship. It's about respect, about acknowledging feelings that matter." She stopped and turned, eyes searching mine. "I get that, but it still hurts. I feel like I'm losing something, some freedom to just be me." "You're not losing yourself," I said firmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're just learning to share your life without hurting someone you care about. That's a skill, and it takes time." Lily reached out and touched Anna's arm gently. "We're not against you. We want you in our lives. But we also need boundaries. It's not about taking anything away, it's about making sure everyone feels safe and respected." Anna nodded slowly, her tension easing just slightly. "Okay, I'll try. But I need to understand how to do this without feeling like I'm giving up myself. That's all any of us can do," I said quietly. "Try, learn, and adjust." As we walked back toward the car, the city lights began to flicker on, one by one. The streets were alive with people, each navigating their own complicated lives, their own delicate balances. And I realized that what we were facing wasn't unusual, it was human. The push and pull between freedom and consideration, love and friendship, was something everyone wrestled with at some point. Back at the apartment, the atmosphere was quieter than usual. Anna lingered at the doorway, glancing around as if trying to gauge whether she still fit into this space, into our lives. Lily moved to the kitchen, preparing a small snack while I sat on the couch, absorbing the silence. For a moment, none of us spoke, and in that silence, I felt a subtle shift. The tension hadn't vanished, was still there, but the edges had softened. There was space for understanding, for compromise, for rebuilding trust. I reflected on the past 2 days, realizing how delicate relationships truly were. A single unasked question, a single action taken without consent, could ripple outward, affecting emotions and bonds in ways no one anticipated. And yet, it was also in these moments, through confrontation, honesty, and vulnerability, that true connection could grow. Anna finally spoke, her voice quiet but sincere. "I don't want to lose either of you. I guess I just need to learn how to be a better friend. Without losing who I am, you won't," I reassured her. "It's about balance, and we'll all learn together." Lily smiled faintly, leaning against me. "Together," she echoed, and in that moment, I understood something vital. Relationships were living, breathing things. They demanded attention, care, and the courage to face discomfort. They were messy, complicated, and sometimes painful, but also the only things worth holding on to as night fell. The apartment was filled with a quiet calm. Not the laughter of before, not the tension of conflict, but a stillness that hinted at growth, understanding, and the promise of navigating the storm ahead. Together. A week had passed since the dinner and the emotional confrontation at the cafe. On the surface, everything seemed Kamana had posted photos again, but this time only after asking Lily and me for approval. Lily seemed more relaxed, smiling and laughing again, though there were moments when her gaze lingered on Anna's phone a little too long, a subtle sign of lingering unease. I had hoped that a week of careful navigation would be enough to reset the fragile balance. But as I woke that Saturday morning, I felt the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing down. I had learned over the years that peace in relationships, especially complicated ones, was never permanent. It required constant maintenance, communication, and an almost psychic ability to anticipate others' emotions. Anna called me first thing, her voice unusually quiet. "Hey, you up?" "Yes," I replied, sensing the tone of uncertainty behind her casual greeting. "I was thinking, maybe we could hang out today." "Just us," she said, a subtle hesitation in her words. I could sense the underlying motivation and attempt to reconnect, to reclaim some sense of freedom after the previous week's constraints. But I also sensed a risk. Spending time alone with Anna might trigger old habits, moments where boundaries could be tested again, and Lily's concerns would resurface. "I think that's a good idea," I said carefully. "But can we make it clear? I mean, just the two of us, so we don't risk any misunderstandings." Anna hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, okay. Just us." We met at a small park in the middle of the city, a quiet spot with tall trees casting dappled sunlight onto the winding paths. For a while, we walked in companionable silence, the crunch of leaves beneath our feet the only sound. It was familiar, comforting, the kind of quiet that comes from years of shared history, but the underlying tension never fully disappeared. Anna's energy, once unfiltered and unstoppable, now seemed tempered, cautious, like she was trying to measure every action and word. And I, in turn, felt a heightened awareness of how to navigate this new version of our friendship. Every laugh, every joke had to be weighed carefully. Finally, she broke the silence. "I've been thinking about what you said last week, about boundaries and respecting Lily. And I get it. I do, but I can't help feeling frustrated, like I'm walking on a tightrope all the time." "I know," I replied. "It's not easy. And it's not supposed to be. But maybe it's about finding a balanced one that keeps everyone comfortable while letting you still be yourself." She looked at me, eyes searching mine. I miss how things used to be. The freedom to just be. I know I've crossed lines, but I never meant to hurt anyone." "I know," I said softly, "and you didn't. But now we have to navigate this carefully, because the stakes are higher. It's not just about friendship anymore. It's about respect, trust, and keeping the balance between everyone involved." We continued walking, discussing memories from our childhood, moments that made us laugh, stories that only we shared. And yet, beneath it all, there was a subtle tension, an undercurrent reminding me that the real challenge was still ahead, managing not only Anna's need for freedom, but also Lily's need for control and security. By the time we returned, I knew one thing for certain. The next steps in our friendship and relationship would require even more care, communication, and honesty. The delicate dance we had begun was far from over, and I could feel that the coming days would test not only my patience, but also the strength of the bonds I cherished most. Later that evening, we decided to meet at my apartment for a casual dinner, an attempt to normalize things after a week of careful navigation. I had cooked something simple, just pasta with a fresh tomato sauce and garlic bread. The smells were inviting, and for a moment, I hoped that tonight would be calm. But as soon as Anna arrived, her energy shifted the atmosphere. She was smiling, trying to lighten the mood. Yet I could see the subtle tension in her posture, a flicker of defensiveness in her eyes. Lily was already there, moving slowly, deliberately, placing dishes on the table with precision. "Hey," Anna exclaimed, dropping her bag and hugging me quickly. "This smells amazing." "Thanks," I said, smiling weakly. "Sit down, everything's ready." Dinner began, and for the first few minutes, it was quiet but pleasant. Anna and I exchanged small jokes, reminiscing about childhood pranks and high school antics. Lily joined in sporadically, laughing politely, but her attention seemed divided. Every time Anna reached for her phone, absent-mindedly Lily's gaze flicked toward her, a quiet tension growing like a slow-burning fuse. Finally, the moment came. Anna, perhaps unaware of the brewing tension, took a photo of Lily holding a breadstick. "Anna," I began cautiously, trying to intervene before the storm broke. Lily's eyes narrowed. "I asked you to stop posting things without asking." Anna froze mid-motion, phone in hand. "It's just a picture. It's harmless." "You're overreacting." "I'm not overreacting," Lily said sharply, her voice tense. "I've told you before, I don't want my life on social media without my consent." I could feel my chest tighten. I had hoped this wouldn't happen again, but the fuse had been lit. "Anna, please. Just put the phone down for now," I said firmly, trying to maintain calm. Anna's face flushed with frustration. "Why does everything have to be about control? I'm just sharing moments. You act like I'm some kind of villain." "You're not a villain," I interjected. "But boundaries exist for a reason. Lily feels uncomfortable, and you need to respect that." The room seemed to shrink under the weight of tension. Lily's eyes were sharp, her voice unwavering. "It's not just about me. It's about respect. You can't just assume everyone is okay with you sharing their life online. That's not friendship." Anna's frustration boiled over. "So now I have to censor myself. I can't do anything without approval." "You're not censoring yourself," I said firmly. "You're adjusting behavior to respect others. That's called empathy." For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest. Anna stared at me, then at Lily, then at her hands. The storm of emotions in her eyes was unmistakable. Hurt, frustration, confusion, and a desperate desire to be understood. Finally, she exhaled sharply. I feel like I'm losing something I've always loved. Sharing life, being free. Now it feels like walking on a tightrope all the time." Lily's tone softened slightly. "I know it's hard. I don't want to take that away. But I also need my own space and control over my life. We can coexist, but only if we respect each other." I looked at both of them, feeling the enormous weight of being the mediator, the one trying to hold this fragile triangle together. "It's not easy," I said quietly, "and it won't be perfect overnight. But if we all try, we can find a way to coexist without hurting each other. Anna's shoulders slumped, a mixture of resignation and understanding. Lily nodded, though the tension in her jaw remained. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. The path forward wasn't about one person winning or losing. It was about negotiating, compromising, and sometimes enduring discomfort for the sake of connection. But even as we settled into a tentative calm, I could feel the subtle tremors of unresolved conflict, like ripples on water. The evening had been a test, and I knew more challenges were ahead. The tension that had been simmering all week finally erupted that evening. We were at my apartment again, trying to have a casual dinner, but the fragile balance shattered in an instant. Anna, trying to lighten the mood, picked up her phone to check a message. Lily's eyes followed her like a hawk. "Anna," I started, sensing disaster. "Really?" Lily snapped. "You're doing it again." Anna froze. "Doing what?" Her voice was incredulous. "It's just checking a message." "You're overreacting. You promised." Lily's voice trembled with frustration. "You promised you'd respect boundaries." "I'm not a child." Anna shot back, anger flashing. "I can't be policed like this." I felt my heart race, the room charged with raw emotion. "Stop," I said firmly, my voice cutting through the storm. "Both of you, just stop." The three of us stood there in tense silence, the air heavy, almost suffocating. Anna's fists clenched at her sides. Lily's face was pale, lips pressed tight, and I felt the immense weight of responsibility pressing down, knowing that the next words could either heal or destroy everything. "I get it," I said slowly. "Anna, you feel restricted. Lily, you feel unsafe. Both feelings are valid. But this fight, it's not helping anyone." Anna shook her head, tears threatening. I feel like I'm losing everything I loved about sharing life. Why does it have to be so complicated?" "Because relationships are complicated," I said softly. "Because friendship and love aren't just about doing whatever you want. They're about understanding, respecting, and sometimes compromising. And yes, it's messy, uncomfortable, but it's also worth it." Lily's voice softened. "I don't want to hurt you, Anna. I just want my life to feel safe and respected. That's all." Anna's defenses wavered. I could see the storm in her eyes slowly turning into something else: reluctant understanding, empathy, a willingness to try. "Okay, I'll try. But it's not easy." "It won't be," I admitted. "Nothing worthwhile ever is. But we can figure it out together." For a moment, silence settled. Not the tense silence of conflict, but a fragile, hopeful quiet. And in that quiet, I realized that the relationships I valued most were not fragile. They were alive, breathing, and capable of growth if we were willing to face the discomfort and do the work. The next morning. The apartment felt different. Not perfect, not free of tension, but lighter, with an unspoken promise that things could be better. Anna and Lily moved around the kitchen, preparing breakfast side by side. There was a tentative ease in their movements, a subtle acknowledgement of each other's presence without conflict. I sat at the table, sipping coffee, reflecting on the past days. The emotional storms, the confrontations, the mediations they had all led to this moment of quiet understanding. Anna spoke first, her voice gentle. "I don't want to lose either of you. I just needed to feel heard, to feel that my freedom mattered too." "It does," I said. but so does her comfort, her privacy, her boundaries. That's all. None of it takes away from you, it just makes us all stronger if we respect it. Lily smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze Anna's hand. We're learning, together. It's not about winning or losing. It's about being there for each other. I felt a deep sense of relief, tempered by the awareness that relationships required continuous effort. This resolution wasn't permanent, it was a moment of understanding, a stepping stone toward a healthier dynamic. As I watched Anna and Lily interact, I realized that the past weeks had taught me more than I could have imagined about friendship, love, and the delicate art of balancing multiple hearts. Life wasn't about avoiding conflict, it was about navigating it, learning from it, and finding connection in the messy. And in that moment, I felt hopeful. Hopeful that despite the tension, the arguments, and the challenges, we could continue to grow together, stronger and more understanding than before. The sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow across the apartment, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to simply breathe, knowing that while the road ahead would still have bumps, we were ready to face it together. The weeks after the cafe confrontation and the tense dinners passed quietly, but they were far from uneventful. Life had a rhythm again, though more measured, deliberate. Each of us, Anna, Lily, and I had learned subtle lessons about respect, empathy, and the fragility of relationships. Anna had adapted to the boundaries, learning to ask before posting photos, though occasionally she still grumbled under her breath. But those moments were softer now, tinged with humor rather than resentment. Lily, in turn, had begun to trust Anna more, letting small glimpses of spontaneity into her carefully curated life. One Saturday, we found ourselves at the park where Anna and I had walked a few weeks earlier. Lily brought a blanket and snacks, and we settled under a large oak tree. The sun filtered through the leaves, dappling the grass with golden light. It was quiet but peacefuler, stark contrast to the storms of the previous weeks. Anna pulled out her phone and hesitated. "Can I take a picture?" she asked. Lily glanced at me, then at Anna, and finally smiled. "Only if I get to pick which one to post," she teased. We all laughed, the kind of laughter that felt genuine, unforced. It was a small victory, a symbolic moment proving that compromise didn't diminish freedom, it enhanced connection. As I watched them, I reflected on the journey we had taken together. The conflicts, the anger, the hurt, it had all been necessary. Without it, none of us would have grown, none of us would have truly understood each other. Friendship, I realized, was more than just shared memories or fun times. It was patience, empathy, and courage, the courage to confront discomfort, to apologize, to compromise, and to forgive. Love, both romantic and platonic, was no different. It was messy, imperfect, but infinitely rewarding if nurtured with honesty and respect. Later that evening, back at the apartment, I sat alone for a moment, looking out the window at the city lights. The world outside was bustling, chaotic, but inside I felt a deep, calm satisfaction. We had weathered storms and emerged stronger, not by avoiding conflict, but by facing it together. Anna came over, leaning on my shoulder. "Thanks," she said softly, "for everything. I know it wasn't easy." "You don't have to thank me," I said, smiling. "We all had to learn, and we're still learning. That's what matters." Lily joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. "We're a team," she said, her voice warm and certain. "Not perfect, but together." And in that embrace, I felt a profound truth. The strength of relationships wasn't measured by the absence of conflict, but by the resilience we showed in navigating it. As night fell, the apartment was quiet, but it wasn't the tense, suffocating silence of the past. It was the calm after the storm, a silence filled with understanding, growth, and hope. We had faced the challenges of boundaries, trust, and freedom, and we had emerged stronger. In that moment, I realized that life with Anna and Lily wouldn't always be easy. There would be moments of friction, disagreement, and discomfort. But I also knew that together, we could navigate anything. The story wasn't about perfect harmony, it was about real connection, real love, and the courage to face the complexities of human relationships with honesty and compassion. And that, I thought, as I watched them laugh quietly together, was worth everything.